Mark Twain Selected Works, Chapter 61 of Following the Equator, Part 2, 1897. Helen Keller has been dumb, stone deaf, and stone blind ever since she was a little baby a year and a half old. And now, at 16 years of age, this miraculous creature, this wonder of all the ages, passes the Harvard University examination in Latin, German, French history, belles lettres, and such things, and does it brilliantly, too, not in a commonplace fashion. She doesn't know merely things, she is splendidly familiar with the meanings of them. When she writes an essay on a Shakespearean character, her English is fine and strong. Her grasp of the subject is the grasp of one who knows, and her page is electric with light. Has Miss Sullivan taught her by the methods of India and the American public school? No, oh no. For then she would be deafer and dumber and blinder than she was before. It is a pity that we can't educate all the children in the asylums. To continue the Calcutta exposure. What is the meaning of a sheriff? Answer 25. Sheriff is a post opened in the time of John. The duty of sheriff here in Calcutta to look out and catch those carriages which is rashly driven out by the coachman. But it is a high post in England. Answer 26. Sheriff was the English bill of common prayer. Answer 27. The man with whom the accusative persons are placed is called sheriff. 28. Sheriff, Latin term for shrub, we call broom, worn by the first Earl of Anjou as an emblem of humility when they went to the pilgrimage, and from this their hairs took their crest and surname. 29. Sheriff is a kind of titleless sect of people, as barons, nobles, etc. 30. Sheriff, a title given on those persons who were respective and pious in England. The students were examined in the following bulky matters: geometry, the solar spectrum, the Habeas Corpus Act, the British Parliament, and in metaphysics. They were asked to trace the progress of skepticism from Descartes to Hume. It is within bounds to say that some of the results were astonishing. Without doubt, there were students present who justified their teacher's wisdom in introducing them to these studies, but the fact is also evident that others had been pushed into these studies to waste their time over them when they could have been profitably employed in hunting smaller game. Under the head of geometry, one of the answers is this: 49. The whole BD equals the whole CA, and so. To me, this is cloudy, but I was never well up in geometry. That was the only effort made among the 5 students who appeared for examination in geometry. The other 4 wailed and surrendered without a fight. There are piteous wails, too, wails of despair, and one of them is an eloquent reproach. It comes from a poor fellow who has been laden beyond his strength by a stupid teacher, and is eloquent in spite of the poverty of its English. The poor chap finds himself required to explain riddles which even Sir Isaac Newton was not able to understand. Oh, my dear father examiner, you, my father, and you kindly give a number of pass, you, my great father. I am a poor boy, and have no means to support my mother and 2 brothers who are suffering much for want of food. I get 4 rupees monthly from charity fund of this place, from which I send 2 rupees for their support and keep 2 for my own support. Father, if I relate the unlucky circumstance under which we are placed, then I think you will not be able to suppress the tender tear. Sir, which Sir Isaac Newton and other experienced mathematicians cannot understand, I being 3rd of entrance class, can understand these which is too impossible to imagine. And my examiner also has put very tiresome and very heavy propositions to prove. We must remember that these pupils had to do their thinking in one language and express themselves in another, an alien one. It was a heavy handicap. I have by me English as She is Taught, a collection of American examinations made in the public schools of Brooklyn by one of the teachers, Miss Caroline B. LaRowe. An extract or two from its pages will show that when the American pupil is using but one language, and that one his own, his performance is no whit better than his Indian brothers. On history, Christopher Columbus was called the father of his country. Queen Isabella of Spain sold her watch and chain and other millinery so that Columbus could discover America. The Indian wars were very desecrating to the country. The Indians pursued their warfare by hiding in the bushes and then scalping them. Captain John Smith has been styled the father of his country. His life was saved by his daughter, Pocahontas. The Puritans found an insane asylum in the wilds of America. The Stamp Act was to make everybody stamp all materials so they should be null and void. Washington died in Spain almost broken-hearted. His remains were taken to the cathedral in Havana. Guerrilla warfare was where men rode on gorillas. In Brooklyn, as in India, they examine a pupil, and when they find out he doesn't know anything, they put him into literature or geometry or astronomy or government or something like that, so that he can properly display the assification of the whole system. On literature, Bracebridge Hall was written by Henry Irving. Edgar A. Poe was a very curdling writer. Beowulf wrote the scriptures. Ben Jonson survived Shakespeare in some respects. In the Canterbury Tale, it gives account of King Alfred on his way to the shrine of Thomas Bucket. Chaucer was the father of English pottery. Chaucer was succeeded by H. Wads Longfellow. We will finish with a couple of samples of literature, one from America, the other from India. The first is a Brooklyn public school boy's attempt to turn a few verses of The Lady of the Lake into prose. You will have to concede that he did it. The man who rode on the horse performed the whip and an instrument made of steel alone with strong ardor not diminishing, for, being tired from the time passed with hard labor, overworked with anger, and ignorant with weariness, while every breath for labor he drew with cries full of sorrow, the young deer made imperfect, who worked hard, faltered in sight. The following paragraph is from a little book which is famous in India, the biography of a distinguished Hindu judge, Onu Oku Chunder Mukherjee. It was written by his nephew and is unintentionally funny. In fact, exceedingly so. I offer here the closing scene. If you would like to sample the rest of the book, it can be had by applying to the publishers, Messrs. Stacker, Spink and Company, Calcutta. And having said these words, he hermetically sealed his lips not to open them again. All the well-known doctors of Calcutta that could be procured for a man of his position and wealth were brought. Doctors Payne, Farrer, and Nilmadab, Mukherjee, and others, they did what they could do with their puissance and knack of medical knowledge. But it proved, after all, as if to milk the ram. His wife and children had not the mournful consolation to hear his last words. He remained sotto voce for a few hours and then was taken from us at 6:12 p.m., according to the caprice of God, which passeth understanding.